and welcome to Wires from the Deep, a Silo series podcast. Today is Saturday, December 7th, 2024, and you're listening to episode 19, School's Out for Rebellion. My name is Krista Watanabe.
And I'm Angela Traficante.
Okay, and we're here to break down Silo Season 2, Episode 4, The Harmonium. So we're going to get right into it. There was a lot that went on this episode. What were your thoughts overall?
I feel like they really started picking up the pace and really started moving through all the plot lines.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the setup that they were doing in the first three episodes started getting more fleshed out here. So let's get to the opening scene. It just takes us right into Solo and Jules. And Solo is he's like doing all kinds of he's like making finger animals. He's telling her all about the circus and elephants and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and stuff like that. But they're basically combing through IT looking for supplies. But I really loved how he was in this scene because he has so much little kid energy. Like he's just like constantly talking, right? He's just like going from one topic to the next and he sounds so excited. He sounds like a little boy.
Yeah, he's clearly just starved for human interaction, and he finally has someone to talk to that isn't himself. And it makes it even it starts out kind of funny because she's so clearly focused on something else
Yeah.
and something she considers important. And then I feel like it gets a little bit sad, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like you couldn't have picked a worse person because she clearly very much has something she wants to get done. And he doesn't care, right? He doesn't have any attachment to her silo. So he's just like, you're here and I have a friend now.
It's kind of like older big sister and little brother, right? Because he's just like so like all excited, and she's just like, oh, I have stuff to do, man. Can you just stop?
I'm an only child and I have no nearby cousins and I've never had kids
Oh.
and I've never interacted with kids. So everything I know about siblings and kids comes from TV. But I know you have this scenario in your
Yeah,
house.
I
So perhaps
do.
you know this for real.
Yeah, so my youngest is a 10-year-old boy, and then I have a 20-year-old daughter who she's gonna be 21 soon. So she's quite a bit older than him. And so I see that dynamic between them sometimes. So it was amusing for me. One interesting thing, oh god, I said interesting. Here we go. He says they let you read books in 18 because I forget what he was talking about, but I think he mentioned Nautilus. And she said, "Yeah, I've heard about that," or something. Was that it?
I thought it was about her name again, but I guess that
Oh,
wouldn't be
was
a
it?
book anyway, but I don't remember either, but I do remember the line. And I do remember thinking that it's weird that he has this understanding of
Yeah,
the system though, because he clearly has read books that he presumably
yeah.
knows that he shouldn't have had access to, because
Mhm.
apparently he would know that people in 17 wouldn't have typically had access to things like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And then yeah, he's curious about her, her own silo and what they do.
Actually, now that you mention it, like I guess she really wasn't listening to him because he says the title right, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. You would think that she would have been like, I don't know what a sea is, right?
Yeah, I think she was just letting him
She tuned
ramble
him out.
until he got kind of so chirpy and annoying that she was like, "Shut up."
All right, and so next they cut to so one thing I want to mention is I thought that the first half of the episode was really choppy. Like they were like going back and forth between different scenes so fast, like very small scenes. So that was like we're gonna be pinging around quite a bit during this breakdown. But yeah, so they go to Knox and Shirley, and they go straight to what we've been speculating about for I think the last two episodes. They go to look at the Wall of Names, but it turns out to not be a wall of names. It's details of past rebellions, and this was kind of weird, right?
Yeah, I found this whole scene a little weird and I wasn't really sure. So obviously we see that they're taught that they have details written that aren't just names, right? It talks
Yeah,
about
yeah,
Blame Mechanical and things like that. And I couldn't tell if this scene was something that production felt like they needed to write in because they didn't want to rely on people to have to, or viewers to have to read the wall themselves, so they needed the characters to sort of put the exposition in. But it felt really dumb because the characters should have been able to read what was going on in that wall and
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
piece it together. So it
It's
made them
very
feel
clearly
dumber than
written.
they are. Knox
Yeah,
is not dumb.
yeah.
So
Yeah, so I mean, and we were talking about the about this on Discord. It's just why would they have read all of this when they were kids and then just thought nothing of it? Like like in the past episode he was saying, "I think I know what this means now," and it's like it's pretty obvious what it means, Knox. Like, why does it sound? Why did he make it sound like a revelation? Or I remember I had said that it kind of seemed like Cooper was the one who told him, because there was some scene where Cooper was like, I gotta talk to you about something. And I think it was just, kind of got the impression that he was talking about that wall, or maybe he was reminding him of it, but I don't know.
yeah, he called it a wall of names. It's clearly a wall of a lot more than names. And I don't know. I mean, maybe it was harder to see than I thought it was. I didn't go back and kind of freeze frame it, but I did see on Reddit people talking about whether some of the stuff had been like scratched out or if it was hard to read.
Yeah. Okay, so another question that's come up is, so after reading that all of this stuff gets blamed on mechanical, then they start talking about what their plan is. They want to find out the truth, and they decide they're going to go. Um, they're not going to go to the mayor. They're going to go to Meadows, because Shirley says that as far as the silo concerns, Meadows is the boss. Which, I don't know. I mean, do you think that's the case? Because I got the impression that everybody knew that she was a blackout drunk.
Yeah, I got the impression that everyone sort of gave her ceremonial like position as judge because she'd gotten there, but that she didn't have any real power.
Yeah, and she's the head of judicial, so I mean, after reading on this wall that everything is blamed on the mechanical, why do they make a plan to go commit silo treason, which is to ask to go outside with the head of the Justice Department? I just baffles me.
Yeah, I mean, we can. I kind of. I think this will come up later because they do obviously end up there. But in my mind, I thought maybe that because of Bernard's speech about how they were like quote unquote testing tape, maybe they thought that there was going to be more of an initiative to go out from now on, and that maybe it would be okay to talk about something like exploring, and that wouldn't necessarily be the same as I want to go out. That's the only thing I can think of
Mm,
though, that they thought maybe they were being helpful or that they could do this without kind of triggering the cleaning protocol.
yeah.
But I agree, it's kind of weird. Like I don't know. It does seem, especially for people who'd been taught for so long in their lives that any kind of indication that you would want to go out is a bad thing, they were just willing to be like, yeah, let's make a plan to not only have one person want to go out, but we want to like have a whole like system for sending people out for recon.
And it just makes them seem like really naive, and that's not how they've portrayed them in the past. Like, I thought these were like the street smart, scrappy people, and yet they want to go and do this weird meeting plan to go ask to do. It's just it.
When tensions are already high too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know. I agree. It does make them seem very naive and very much like they're going to be listened to, when it kind of seems clear that like there was some foul play with Juliet, and so I don't know why they would think that like there wouldn't be the same thing happening to them.
yeah, very weird. And so next they go to Bernard and Sims, and they're arguing over mechanic. I guess Sims is upset that Meadows is taking the meeting with Mechanical, and that she's gonna hear an appeal with Lucas. I was happy to hear that Lucas is back in, because it kind of seemed like he was like gone to the mines and that was it. I was starting to be worried that he got written out of the show basically. But yeah, and so they have like kind of a tense meeting. It's like this ongoing power struggle. I don't know. Power struggle? What do you think? I mean, he's trying to Sims is trying to get in with him, right? And he's not really having much success.
I think Sims is trying to grasp at like any straw he can right now. Like he's trying to grasp at Meadows, and then when that doesn't work, he's trying to grasp at Bernard, and then when that doesn't work, he's trying to make plans that will get him in with one or the other. He's just sort of flailing. He's one or two steps behind right now on all of the important points, and I think he just really wants to be caught up.
Yeah. Which is funny because he basically tells him, I've been watching you. He knows that he's been going to speak to Meadows a lot. And I guess, I don't know, do you get like it's kind of like he's jealous, right?
Yeah, I get the sense that Sims really wants to be in, like, I don't know what you'd call it, the inner circle, and the fact that he's not is really like grating on him.
Which is funny because he's pretty in, he's just not at the top, right? Because he's like head of janitorial, so he knows like all the surveillance things, and he's like pretty high up there, but he's not happy with that, right?
I almost think that that would make you want more, right? Like, you
Mm,
know that there's like one more secret that you aren't being let in on, especially with Bernard constantly like putting him off the shadow thing. Like,
yeah,
every time we've seen it, it's just been Bernard being like, no. Like, there's no explanation. We don't have any backstory for why Bernard doesn't want Sims as his shadow, I don't think. So it's just a lot of, we just keep seeing Sims get shut out for like what seems like no reason.
yeah, and he doesn't. It's not like, the only person he really has to talk to is Meadows, but he doesn't actually bring it up with Meadows, so we don't get to hear why he's opposed to Sims being his shadow and why he doesn't have a shadow.
I wonder if the stuff with Meadows like kind of just put him off having a
Mm,
shadow. Like, maybe he's more human than we think he is, and he's just like, look what happened the last time I tried to have a shadow.
yeah,
I don't want to
yeah.
do that to someone else.
I would think that a person in his position is required to have a shadow because if he has a heart attack, then what, right?
Yeah, I think I said this like a podcast ago or something, where I was like, I cannot believe that IT of all things doesn't have a
Yeah,
shadow. It's just inconceivable, especially because it's obviously been for so long.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, 25 plus years. So, but yeah, so Bernard next goes to Meadows and he's upset about her two meetings. I didn't really understand why he was so upset about the Lucas one. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's because he probably considers Lucas like a troublemaker or an undesirable, and he's worried what Meadows is gonna do there because
Uh,
she is also a loose cannon at this point. So
oh, so you think that he thinks that she's actually gonna commute his sentence and just let him go, kind of
yeah,
thing?
and then like
Oh,
he wouldn't be
okay.
able to do anything about that really. I mean, I guess he
Mm,
could, like, but that would like undermine everything that I think the silo knows about what judges are capable of doing. So yeah, he's worried that Meadows is going completely off the rails.
okay, that makes sense. All right, so Solo takes Jules to a classroom, and everybody's been talking about this because Jules says, "Oh, what are all these numbers?" And it's like this sequential list of six-digit numbers, and he's like, "Oh no, yeah, you can erase them. I don't think anyone will mind." So, what do you think the numbers on the wall are? I've been seeing speculation that it's vault combinations, but I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
I honestly, until I read these notes, had forgotten about the numbers and forgotten about that line entirely. And I don't even think I heard them say that line about what the numbers were or that you can erase them. So I have no idea. I Six digits would be a very long combination for a vault, and I
Yeah.
don't think we've seen Bernard open the vault, but I forget what the number amount was. Was it four?
His combination was 5 digits, and then later on, when Solo opens the vault, his is four, and then the ones on the wall are six. So I don't know. It's kind of all over the place. I don't know what to make of it myself. So
Yeah, what do you think the numbers are? Did you have an idea?
I don't know. I've seen people speculating that Solo is the one who wrote them and that he was trying to get into the vault. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know why he would write them in the classroom. Like, why wouldn't he just write them on the wall in the vault? Because it's much closer, you know? Like, why are you going to write your list down all the way in the classroom, which is not going to be on the same level as IT? So he would have had to go to a different level to write on this chalkboard, right? So that just doesn't seem very efficient.
Yeah, I don't know. I When I first saw the classroom, I think I just kind of, given the way everything was positioned in it, I just sort of assumed that whatever had happened, well, obviously what happened to 17 had happened like in the middle of a day, and that they were just in the middle of a lesson, and that whatever was in that room was left from back then, like, cuz
Hmm.
it didn't seem, well, we know that Solo says he hasn't been out in a long time,
Yeah.
and it didn't seem like it seemed like that was his first time in the classroom in a very long time.
Yeah,
So I don't
yeah, it
know.
was.
I didn't get the idea that he'd been there or that he'd been writing numbers or using them in any way.
So one of my favorite parts of this scene was when Solo asks what kind of holiday they have in Silo 18, and she tells him that because I guess there's a Founders Day like display for the kids on the wall, and he asks what they have, and she says they have Freedom Day. He's like, "Oh, what do you celebrate on Freedom Day?" And she's like, "Freedom, Solo."
Yeah, I just took this as another one of her, like, I'm brushing him off because, like, I'm doing the bare minimum I can to sort of pacify him so he'll, like, shut up.
Yeah, she's very. I'm busy, man. But he's really cute. I really like how he's portraying Solo. And then he finds a backpack and he gets really nostalgic. He's touching it. He's saying that he knew a girl named Lapis. And then Jules points out that it's a level. This is, I think, the first that we hear of the type of grades that they have. She says it's a level B classroom, meaning that the girl was 11 or 12 when the rebellion started. And then Solo kind of like gets uncomfortable and he's like, "Oh, I never said that this was her backpack." So he tries to pass it off like he wasn't one of those kids with her. But I mean, it seems clear that he was, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I'd been very frustrated with Jules throughout this entire like episode so far, but this scene in particular felt like a lot of like obdurateness from Juliet. Like I know she's busy and I know she's very focused and I know that she's not good with people, but it seems really clear what Solo was implying here, even
mhm.
if he tried to like walk back from it. And she did seem to get it because she kind of like paused and was like, huh, that
Yeah,
would have
yeah,
made all these kids very young. And but she just like also continues to ignore his general like mental state. Like he's clearly traumatized, he's clearly somewhat of a child still, and she's just doing like a terrible job of managing her interactions with him.
yeah.
And I just like I was like very annoyed at her the whole episode.
Yeah, and then she asks what happened to his eye, and he really doesn't want to talk about it. And I have no clue what could have caused that to happen. So, because it looks like his eye is
Um
yellow, right?
Yeah, it looks like he's heterochromatic, and that can be caused from trauma, like head trauma
He
or
mentions that he
whatever.
has blue eyes. So
Yeah, one of his eyes is blue.
I don't know the way that he said it. I guess I got the impression that he had two blue eyes and like something happened to the other one. I don't know. Just the way he said it. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. There's a lot that can sort of cause that sort of trauma, so I think I mean, we're definitely getting a
Yeah,
Solo
we're gonna
backstory
learn
episode.
eventually. All right, next they go to Billings, and he's reassuring his wife because he's leaving. He's going to go to the down deep to go investigate because I think last episode Hank was like, "Oh, we need you down here," so he's going down to go investigate what happened to Cooper. And then they go to Carla. She's being picked up by Mechanical because she's going to the meeting. Although I don't. Do you remember why they said they're going to include her?
Um, no, not at all.
I don't know why, and it's a long
In
ways to
fact,
go too. So
yeah, in fact there's a very like is that also the scene where they're like, "Oh, you don't have to go." And then Walker's like, "You can stay behind," and then she like goes anyway? Or is that a different
oh,
scene?
that might have been in the garden. I don't know, but there was one thing that the first time I watched it, she goes, "My dogs were pissed because they asked her, 'Did you get it?' or something," and I had no idea what they were talking about. But it's a reference to the two colored balls that she drops later. So I guess they had asked her if they could have her dog's toys to drop to use as signals. But yeah, because she taps her bag, so and that's where she pulls out the balls later.
Yes, I was very like I thought it was going to be way worse than that because like when she said that I was like, "Oh, do they have like a bomb or something?" My mind went really dark.
All right, so Sims talks about impeachment of Meadows with his wife, and he's like talking about he like doesn't think he could do it. He's like talking about signatures and all the bureaucracy and the things he needs to do. And his wife tells him that he only needs the threat, so he doesn't actually have to accomplish an impeachment. And so that gets this storyline between Sims and Bernard going to giving it more steam.
Yeah, I don't know where this storyline's going anymore because I thought it was going to head toward Bernard either getting rid of Sims entirely or bringing him like more fully into the plot, like by like maybe making him a shadow or something. But given what happens to Meadows, I don't think we can just kill Sims too. Like I don't think we can just keep murdering people. Maybe we can.
Okay, so do you think that no one knows that Meadows used to be his shadow? Because it seems like I don't really understand because he's IT and Sims is in judicial, but they seem pretty closely interlinked and Camille doesn't seem to know, but so
Yeah, if I
who would
remember
know?
correctly, Camille said that Meadows was in IT, but she didn't
And she was
say that
close to
she was
him, but
his
she didn't say
shadow.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so does the head of IT just regulate himself? Like he's the only one who determines whether he has a shadow? I don't know how that
And
works.
also like no one would have known, like no one still alive would have seen her or this wouldn't have been registered anywhere or yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
They don't seem to have a lot of good record keeping.
no, they don't. All right. So Solo had taken Jules to the classroom because he had had the idea of her using the harmonium to pump air because that's what she was trying to figure out. She needs, I think she said 50 feet. She needed to figure out a way to pump air to herself. And then here's where she snaps at him, right? Because he's playing music and she's trying to work and she's like working something out on the chalkboard. I guess she's making schematics for her little air contraption,
Yeah, another like example of her just like completely
losing
not
it.
knowing how to interact with him
Mm.
because like he's very clearly smart. Like he lived all this time by himself. He's
Hmm.
gotten by and he puts together that the pumps on the harmonium can pump air for her. So like it's just like infuriating that she sort of just continually brushes him off.
Well, not just that he's smart, but he knows where things are and he has good ideas because he's the one who told her that she could try using the firefighter suit and where exactly they were located, right? So
Yeah.
you would think that she would treat him as a valuable resource because he knows where all the shit is.
Yeah, and it's funny because she doesn't seem to know what the harmonium is, which makes me think
Mm,
like her silo doesn't have one, or maybe the classroom she was in doesn't have one. And it also just makes me curious about the harmonium because, like, was that convenient writing because they needed some sort of reed organ so that they had something Jules could use for her air supply? Or is it some sort of actual story choice and it's supposed to indicate something about the world before the silos? Because a harmonium is a very odd thing. Like we don't use them a lot anymore in like
I
normal
mean, I had
modern.
never heard of a harmonium before this episode. Seriously, I've heard of
Yeah.
harpsichords and pianos and organs, but not specifically a harmonium. I'd never heard of one. So
Yeah, the one he uses is a foot pedal harmonium. They were invented in like the mid 1800s and you don't hear them a lot. And so but we do know that the silos post date 2018 based on something that happens later in this episode. So it kind of felt like a very interesting choice to me.
all right, next they go back to Meadows. Lucas returns. She's hearing his appeal. And we actually get some information about the mines. Oh my god, if there's one thing besides like Common's leather jacket that people talk about, it's the mines. People talk about the mines so much. They want to know where they are and what they are. And Meadows confirms that that's where they mine ore because she like lifts up some metal box and she's like, "Oh, what is this made of? This is what we need. It's very critical to our survival." So, what did you think about that?
I've been curious about the mines too. I know we're not really supposed to like talk about the books, but there's no mention of the mines in the books, is there?
No, no.
Okay, I'm not crazy then. Yeah, so this is like a show thing. I don't know where they're going with it. I have a lot of questions myself about the mines because we know that the silos are reasonably close together. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
where are they mining? Are they mining straight down? Because they can't probably mine too far to the side, or they'd be hitting
Another
silos
silo.
eventually.
Yeah, and then they can't really dig down because they've shown the bottom of the silo with that giant cavern with the water in it. So yeah.
Yeah, so something water obviously can flood the silos if you're going too far down, probably into like the water table or
Mm-hmm.
something. But yeah, so I don't really know. I'm not sure we're ever gonna get answers to this. I kind of hope we do though, because I'm very curious about it.
So Meadows is kind of dismissive of his actual case, and it's clear that that's not why she wanted to meet with him. And so even he asks, "So why did you agree to this meeting?" And she dismisses her guards, and then she starts busting out all this science. she she like knows tons of astronomy. She like also I think we had mentioned in a previous episode that it didn't seem like Jules knew what the sun is, but Lucas knew it was called the sun. So maybe they do know what the sun is, but not the stars, because Meadows tells him that they're called stars.
Yeah, she if I recall, she just simply didn't react to the word sun. So like maybe that was just kind of
Hmm.
odd writing or odd acting. Yeah, I'm not sure. She didn't like question him about what the sun was, so maybe they
So
do know.
in season one, did Lucas see the Georgia guidebook?
No, I don't think so.
Uh,
I think only
I
Jules
thought I
saw it.
thought I thought he
I
I
can't
thought
remember
he
though.
did, because I think that thing had mentioned that they were called stars,
This whole scene was very odd to me. Like she asks him what the lights in the sky are as though she doesn't know
and then
in
she
like a
just
tone, and then she just busts out all this information about stars and the solar system and the sun and you know rotations and revolutions and then she quickly kind of changes tactics and once he sort of seems interested and starts asking questions, she's just
cuts
like
him off.
5 years. Bye. You're going back down to the
Yeah,
mines.
she's
I
really all over the place.
Like, what was she looking for from him, do you
I
think?
don't
Like, was
I don't
she
know.
looking to see how much he knew?
Because if it was about the hard drive, she didn't really talk to him about it that much, right?
It sort of seemed more like she was trying to figure out how much he knew and then supply him with more information, but I don't know why she would have done that and then re-sentenced him to the mines. Maybe she had a plan for after that, but it obviously could never come to fruition now.
Yeah. So I also wanted to note that I had thought that he already went to the mines, but it doesn't look like he has. I guess he's just been detained somewhere. He's probably just been in jail, because she mentions that the miners wear yellow coveralls, but he's still wearing, I think, the clothes that he got. I think it's the same clothes that he was wearing when Bernard sentenced him originally. So I think he probably just got sent somewhere to go sit and wait until he goes to the mines. So
I guess it's only been like
a few
days.
days, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of makes sense. He wouldn't have been down there yet. There might be a whole judicial process. Maybe
Process,
appeals are
yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, but after she dismisses Lucas, she hears the people outside her window, and she opens her blinds and she sees like signs outside. And the Impeach Meadows campaign has started. And then they cut to mechanical. They're stopping to rest in a garden. They're filling up water, and then Walker and Carla talk. And Carla mentions that Walker was hiding for 25 years, and like several people pick this up too. But 25 is the number that they've been throwing around for Meadows too. So it feels like that was intentional, because it's like 25 here and 25 here. Something happened. Something specific happened 25 years ago.
Yeah. I agree that something happened to Walker as well. Like I've kind of thought that since the moment they kind of said she hasn't really come out of her hidey hole in 25 in like a long time. So
And actually, when did Hannah Nichols die? Was that maybe around the same time too? I think I probably have that somewhere. But Jacob Nichols died in 122. The current year is 143. It's like 21. I don't have when Hannah Nichols died for some reason. But I'm assuming it's kind of soon after Jules' younger brother died. So about 20 years ago. A lot happened 20 to 25 years ago. All right, so now they lay out their plan. They're going to Meadows to ask permission to go send people out and explore. And Shirley says that she would go, and Knox says he wants to see the distance and he wants to see Jules if she's out there. And yeah, like I said before, like I don't understand. Like, what kind of plan is this? Surely people have wanted to go exploring before, and that's just not allowed, right? So, what, what are they doing?
Yeah, it feels like a massive jump from this is a completely forbidden action that no one would ever state aloud because it gets you immediately kind of, sentenced to death to, yeah, now we're like forming plans around it, like extensive multi-step plans.
And like Shirley keeps insisting that she thinks Juliet is still alive, but she doesn't know that there's other silos. So why hasn't she thought, oh, why hasn't Jules come back and knocked on on the camera, right? And why hasn't she like thought about like her air supply or stuff like that? Like why does she keep insisting that she's alive without really knowing how she could possibly be alive?
I think that's almost maybe exactly why she thinks she's alive because they saw her go over that ridge and they literally have no idea what's out there. Like,
Uh
for all they know, there's a building out there or there's a better world out there. I guess when you're
Anything's
trapped
possible.
inside, yeah, anything's possible when you can see like, a tiny square plot of land in front of you
Mm,
and that's it. I agree that it's far fetched, but I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of someone who would like be in the situation, which is pretty impossible to do. But I'm like thinking, like, yeah, you see her go and she doesn't return. And if she doesn't return, really are only two options. She died out of sight, or she's alive and found something that would make her not want to return. That would make her not want to like come back and knock on the door, right?
yeah. Or I guess also she could be thinking that like there's other people out there and they're keeping her from coming back, right? So,
Yeah, that's true too. I guess there's a third option. But yes, I think it's like one of those, well, I don't want to think she's dead. So
mm,
I'm hoping that there's something out there.
Juliet lives.
But this feels like a lot of like hope from a bunch of people who presumably have grown up like kind of having their hopes suppressed. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know how realistic this is, right? Like when you're kind of told that this is like the only thing that's out there and that you have to stay inside and that it's the only safe place and that everyone who goes out dies and in your experience everyone who goes out dies. It feels like a stretch to have all of these people who think that there's something better out there and that they're super hopeful about it, but
I guess it's like you said, it comes from the fact that Julia walked over the hill and she was one of them. So I guess they just feel like an injection of hope from that. So but yeah, I don't know. Shirley seems like the wrong person to like make the center of this because she doesn't really seem like the optimistic personality type. You know what I mean?
yeah, if anything, those young scenes between like young Shirley and young Juliet definitely set up Shirley as like the kind of stodgy, this is just
Yeah,
my life and I
yeah.
don't like it very much, but it is what it is. It'd be different if she'd been like kind of a dreamer, but I don't
Mhm,
know. I didn't get
mhm.
that sense from like young Shirley that she
Yeah,
was
exactly.
dreaming of a better life.
Yeah,
Not like the
exactly.
judge anyway. Not like Meadows has a much more like with all the relics and stuff, the air of like, yes, I'm hopeful and I want more and I'm sold on that. And Meadows has the resources to dream about it too. She has
Yeah,
all these relics to
exactly.
look at,
Yeah. And
whereas the people in
videos.
Mechanical don't.
Yeah. Okay, so Billings meets with Hank and he talks about Cooper's murder. He finds out that Judicial took the firebomber. And then they go back to Jules and Solo where they're testing the pump. And I like this part. Solo doesn't think he locked the vault. He wants to go back and check, and he's like freaking out over it. Right? He's like, "Oh my god, did I?" It's very I did I leave the oven on? Like I've had that like worry before, so it was very
I think we
relatable.
all have. Like, I do the same thing. Like, whenever we leave on a 2 week vacation or more, my husband and I have this like little ritual at the door where we stand there and we say things aloud. We'll be like, I see both the cats. They aren't trapped in the rooms. The oven's off. passports, phone, wallet. Okay, the windows are shut. Okay, the lights are off. Like we literally repeat these things back to one another before we leave so that then later we can remember that we did that.
Good plan.
Yeah. Anyway, I got that vibe too. I kind of loved it.
Yeah, it's cute. Bernard is in his office and he's gotten wires about the impeachment banners, and Meadows comes and she asks him if he did it and he denies it. Um, and then he invites her to dinner and he says that she can try on her suit and that they need to discuss next steps, and that she's going to go to dinner at 7 and the mechanical group is coming up at 9.
I mean, I just I watch a lot of horror movies and a lot of thrillers and a lot of mysteries, and the moment that he invited her to dinner, I was like, "Oh
Uh-oh.
no." Like, "Oh, we're going this route. We're definitely getting rid of her at dinner, right?" Like I can't even imagine why Meadows would trust him at this point, but I guess they go back so far that maybe she thought she could manage him. Like maybe she thought she was smarter than him. And frankly, she probably is smarter than him, but he just kind of outwitted her in this instance.
Mm-hmm. Not here though. She was lured right in by the meal.
And the suit. That's the
And
important
the
part. He
suit.
knew how to
Yeah.
play
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
He knew like, oh, I'm gonna like ease her into the like thinking that everything's going according to her plan.
So they briefly discuss Lucas and he asked her why she cut his sentence in half, and she says, "Oh, it's only to appear fair and he's not going to last a year anyway," which wow, that was kind of cold.
Yeah, that tells you something about the mines, though, I guess, like kind of what they're like and what, kind of protections they probably have down there, which sounds like little to none.
I mean, it sounds like it's basically a death sentence, right? I mean, if she thinks that he's not going to last very long and she doesn't seem to care that she thinks he's going to die basically in there, right?
I can only imagine she was setting up a plan and we're just never going to know what it was.
Oh.
At least I like to think that. Like,
Mm,
it still kind of stinks of bad writing because, like, you don't really want to set up plot threads like that, I guess, and then just like
yeah.
dump them on the floor.
That go nowhere.
Yeah, but I would like to think that she had like kind of done that, like putting things in motion, and then just the
Mhm.
whole thing gets short circuited.
Mm. All right, so it's back to this. So this is what I'm talking about, like earlier. I was talking about earlier with the jumps back and forth. It's very choppy. So they go back to Jules and Solo, and they're trying out the pump, and Solo looks scared. Then they go back to Hank and Billings in the morgue, where they find out that Judicial took Cooper's body, and that there were two bodies there, and the second body I think was Patrick Kennedy, but I had
I
thought he
don't
was alive
know.
earlier. Like Judicial like took him into custody, not that they took his body. So I was really confused here, and I don't understand why Judicial would take Cooper's body.
I just thought it was because to me it seemed very clear that Sims set up the whole thing, right? Like he set up
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
firebombing, and I just thought it was one of those like he wanted him to go in
Getting rid
and
of
then
all
they
the
wanted to take
evidence.
away the evidence. But yeah, I agree that I had thought he was alive still, and I guess maybe he wasn't.
And then they go right back to see. I don't understand why they cut between Solo and Jules, and then Hank, and then Jules again. And then Jules goes in the water, and before that, Solo calls her Captain Nemo. She is miraculously an expert swimmer slash diver now because I mean
Yeah,
in like the first season she was like terrified of water. She like got submerged and she was like panicking. But now she's just fine with like tying a rope to herself and using a big metal weight to like go into like deep water. What?
I did wonder how she was going to manage the swimming portion of this. So, like, I guess it makes sense that she would weigh herself down so that she could do more of like a
Yeah, yeah,
walking
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree that it seemed very ambitious to go from I don't know how to swim, I don't know much about water at all, I've never really been submerged in it, to yeah, I'm going to tie myself to this thing and like sink down with a breathing apparatus that I've like never really tested and or anything. It I guess it speaks to her desperation or her
And like
confidence in herself
her
or
bravery,
both.
right? I mean, you got to have a lot of guts to like be scared of water and then go and do that. Um because like when she like first her air hose is too short, and then her rope and her weight gets stuck, and I was just like, oh my god, this is a nightmare. She's like she can't breathe. I hate scenes like this because, uh, It just like they're gonna get out and like yeah you have to like endure all this like horrible panicking underwater and I know how to swim, but I don't like know how to dive, and so just it was very scary for me.
Yeah, I just thought it was like also like she just kind of threw the air supply like away when it suddenly couldn't reach far enough and wasn't working. And I
Yeah,
was like, I don't know. I feel like I would have gone back and like
I know
kind
you
of
have air,
rethought the plan for a moment.
right,
And
right.
she didn't know there was going to be air on the other side. There could have been, but there also could not have
Yeah,
been. The whole room could
yeah,
have been flooded. The whole thing
yeah.
felt very weird to me.
Okay, and then they go to Bernard. He's playing a vinyl record of music, and he's cooking dinner.
Okay, so am I insane? Like, I thought that records and record players were probably like some sort of relic or forbidden item, but I guess maybe they're just the things that people in silos use to play music. Like, have we seen one before?
Oh no, I mean I got the impression that he has one because he's like the head honcho. Like that's his like special thing because
Like,
he's got
Jules knew
the
what
VR.
music was, though.
Well, I think it's because we've like seen people in like the open market like playing music or something. So they know like music, but I don't know that they know what records are. And I think probably the music that Jules hears is nothing she's ever heard before. Like I don't think they have like everyday people listening to old music from the before times kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, they obviously had the harmonium in Silo 17, and he has a and Solo has a music player. But yeah, I was unsure because I just thought that this was some sort of like relic. Um,
Mm. Yeah, I think it's definitely relic. And he probably, unlike Judge Meadows, he probably doesn't let a lot of people into his apartment. So
I know, right? Everyone traipsing around her apartment. I wonder what's going to happen to all of her stuff. Bernard will just take it.
Sims is gonna have to take it, right? He's in charge of all the relics. He's got that relic closet behind his desk. He's gonna go get all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
All right, then it goes back to Solo, and he keeps pumping for Jules, even though she's not using the hose anymore. But I guess that makes sense because they probably talked about it. Because I think she specifically tells him that don't ever stop pumping air because I think they probably thought that she would get to the end of the hose, she'd have to go swim on her own, and then come back to the hose. So they need like she needs like a constant supply, even if she's not using it.
Yeah,
She gets
I
out
agree.
she gets out and she has to try to get into a metal locker, and oh my god, this was like kind of unnerving for me because she's like she hulking her way into the locker and she's like punching it and everything, and I was like, oh my god.
I just
like
thought it was funny that yeah, like she got all the way down there and like hadn't brought like a tool with her. Like
yeah.
I was like, you didn't think you'd need something on the other side to like help you do this? Like you brought a whole like anchor to get you over there and didn't like bring a crowbar.
or like I
I
thought
don't
she
know.
would like look around for one at least. But instead she just
Yeah.
starts punching it.
Yeah,
And
and
I
so starts
every
breaking open metal. That didn't.
yeah,
I
I
don't
thought
know. Maybe she's way stronger than I thought she was.
yeah, I don't know. It was making me really anxious though because every time she punched it, I was like, "Oh my god, that sounded like it hurt." Or when she's like bending the metal, I was like, "Oh my god, you're gonna cut your hand open." It's just very made me very anxious. But I don't think I could bend a locker a locker door like that. Do you?
Definitely not. No.
She's a lot stronger than us. Uh, And so while Solo is waiting, this was cute because he starts getting you can see like the worry. You can see his mind going like, "Oh my god, it's the vault. I didn't lock it." He starts worrying about it again, right? He's getting all antsy, and then she pops out of the water. She's wearing the fireman suit. She obviously got the locker open and she got it. And then he runs back to the vault. As soon as she pops out, he just runs away. It was funny. He's so panicked that he just leaves her in the water, but then when he gets to the door, it is locked. So he's like, "Oh, it is locked." But then he tries the combo and it doesn't work. And oh my god, the way that he reacted when he like didn't get in the second time was so cute. He's like, "What happened?"
I like how you say cute. I was actually like really. I thought it was really tense. Like I was like, oh my god, he doesn't know the combo.
Oh yeah, it was just his reaction. It was just funny because I've been there where I'm like I do my combo like, "Oh, I got it wrong." Like when I like put in my password and it turns out I made a typo and it's like I didn't see it because it's blotted out by the dots.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how he like turns on her and is like, "What did you do?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
I know that you'd probably do that in a panicked state because she's like the first person he's seen in a while. But I was like, well, that
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense, Solo. Like, you've been here the whole time. But I also like really, so I think, I mean, I said this before in this podcast, but I was just really infuriated with Jules, like this whole episode and how she treated Solo because here she says what I can only describe as like the bitchiest and most callous line that she's had, where she's like, says something like, maybe you should try writing the numbers down. And I'm like, Jules, he's literally like trying to
Melting
open the vault
down.
right now. Like he's melting down, he's trying to open the vault. He doesn't appear to know the number or remember it. Like, how do you think that is at all helpful in this moment to say something dumb like that? And just like, I kind of couldn't believe her complete like obliviousness.
Yeah, I think we've all been there when we're like mad in the middle of having a fit, and like someone just said something really stupid to you and it gets you even more mad.
Yeah, you're like that. You're like freaking out, and they're like, "Calm down," and you're like, "What? Excuse me."
Yeah, actually the one that I thought of was my dog got loose and I had to go run up the street and get her and carry her back, and she's like 70 pounds. So I came back in the house and I was all sweaty and I was all upset. And my son just goes, I told you not to take her walking. I was so
Yeah, and you're
pissed.
like super helpful now.
Yeah,
Thanks.
exactly. Ah. All right, so they go
Yeah,
back to Meadows and Bernard, and it seems like they're having a nice time. They're like exchanging stories or something, right? They're like laughing and talking about stuff from the past. And then she's like, "I want to try on my suit." And this happened pretty quickly. Like he doesn't say anything, right? He's just looking at her, and she like starts breathing heavily, and she just knows already, right? And she asks, how long do we have? He says, oh, they only have minutes, and that he poisoned the mushrooms.
which is kind of like I was like, wow, that's a bold move, Bernard. Poisoning someone and then you're trying to like get information out of them and ask them questions even though you have no leverage and you know they're going to die like any second. But sure, continue to ask her questions and try and get information out of her.
I know. I mean, if it was me and I was gonna die, but I ain't telling you shit, right? I would be like so mad, and I would be like, I'm not gonna tell you anything. Like I thought he
Yeah,
would
and
have
instead it's like,
asked the questions before she figured it out.
yeah, it's like I would almost have thought he was gonna like show her the suit and get her all buttered up and ask her
Yeah,
questions and then
yeah,
be like, "Oh, by the way, I poisoned you." But instead,
yeah.
he just goes for it, and she's weirdly forthcoming, even though he just murdered her.
Yeah, and he must know how much time they have left to talk because he's obviously watching her eat, so he must know approximately how when she's going to start feeling the effects and realize what's going on. So, but I did not see this coming. I thought that he was going to drug her and maybe stick her back in her apartment, and like she was just going to just lay there like how she always did before. So when it turned out to be poison, I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, and I'm just like, wow, he's using like the same trick again, and it's working. Like he already did this, and he's gonna do it again. And I guess that would make sense. Like, I guess if it worked once, why not do it again?
You're talking about John's? Mia
Yeah,
John's? Yeah. I guess it's different this time though because it's like a setup as a murder. I think he told everybody that John's died of a heart attack. Was that
yeah,
it?
yeah. I think they
Yeah.
tried to make it seem like natural causes because she'd done that trek right before.
Yeah. But you would think that people would just get like start flipping out just that because like two of the three big leaders in the silo, like isn't that basically like three branches of government, right? That's the heads. And like IT is like two of them now, so you would think that people would start getting worried, but I don't know, maybe that's just my current modern mind not really considering the state of mind that they're in. But so like you said, she figures it out and they start talking very rapidly. She asks about the hard drive. She mentions Salvatore Quinn, who was head of IT. Do you remember when she said 100
Um,
something years
I
ago?
think she said at the time of the last like rebellion, didn't she?
Oh, okay, so that would make it 140 something years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then I had actually heard that name before, and I had to go ask around and look it up, and it was in like some kind of Rebecca Ferguson did this video where she answered fans' questions. It was this video, and so they showed like in between her answering questions, they showed shots of like the show, and they had one where somebody is opening a copy of the Pact, and at the top it has a name, and it was Salvador Quinn. So that's where I
Huh.
saw it before. So we're gonna see that name again, I guess, because there's a book out there with his name in it. But they talk about a coded message, and Bernard thinks that she decrypted it.
Yeah,
And they
does
talk
she confirm
about.
or deny? I don't think
I don't
so.
think she confirms it because I mean, like how we were saying, like why would she tell him anything, right? So, but they also bring in some background how 25 years ago she told him she didn't want to be tethered to him for the rest of her life, and that she was stepping down. He says that she vanished for 4 days, and when she came back, that's when she quit. And then she says that it wasn't that. It was that. Well, what did she say exactly? She said that she didn't want him to never be fully committed to her or
No,
something.
I think it was she said that she knew he could never be fully committed to her,
Uh,
which I took to mean because he was like tethered to IT, like
yeah,
his
and he
job
was like
came first.
he was head of the silo, so
Yeah.
okay, so I'm gonna go into my crackpot theory, which is not very popular. I mentioned this in the discussion thread for the show, but when he said that she vanished for 4 days, I in my brain because remember I had talked about how I noticed last week that all of the videos that she was crying over had children in them, not necessarily outside children, specifically young children. So I having this on my mind, I thought that she disappeared because she had an abortion. And for me that might explain like why she's like crying so much watching these videos and what she said about being tethered to him and stuff like that. So but yeah, I don't know. I know that some people think that that's a leap, but I still think it's possible. And we'll see. I hope that we end up finding out what this 4 days was and what happened. Some people I saw saying that they think that she went to another silo, but I don't think that's it because I feel like that's too big of a deal.
I didn't think of the pregnancy thing. Like, I certainly there are things that kind of head that way. Like, like you said, her watching things of children. Also, like the kind of side tangents we've seen with like Dr. Nichols and sort
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
constantly bringing up children. So I think like it's a possibility, but my mind personally didn't go there. I thought that she vanished doing something, like maybe exploring another part of the silo. I don't know if she went to another silo necessarily, but like we do know that there's
A
a
door.
secret door.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
she saw something behind that. So yeah, I'm not gonna say that it's completely impossible because I think your theory like has some basis under it. It's just not where my mind went.
Yeah, yeah, like you said, like I think we've been talking pretty consistently over this season that we're not really sure where this Dr. Nichols storyline is going, just because it just seems very I don't it doesn't I don't really see how it ties into everything that's going on. But
Yeah,
if
it's
they're trying
definitely
to establish
detached.
him, yeah, if they're trying to establish him as being a source of where to get the answer to what, like this answer that Meadows apparently just died with, that might be the only way that that information gets out is through him. So yeah, that's a possibility. So
Yeah, I guess he's old enough that he may have known something about it if this were like the case, like that she was
hmm
pregnant.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't
yeah, because
know.
he looks like he looks like he's in his 60s or 70s, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And so as Meadows is dying, he busts out some VR glasses and he puts it on her eyes, and then he like shows her like I think he said Costa Rica. And he's showing her animals and things like that. And I thought it was really. Did you notice that when he was walking her through the video, he seemed to know exactly what she was seeing at what point? So it was like he was so familiar with what she was looking at that he had obviously watched it a lot. So he knew
Yeah.
where to point her, where to look, even though he wasn't seeing it.
Yeah, I definitely think he's looked at this a lot. Yeah, it was Costa Rica. He said the Monteverde Cloud Forest Biological Reserve, and he said it was
Mm,
2018.
hmm.
Um,
Capuchin
yeah,
monkeys
so
and some
yep,
kind of
monkeys
birds
and
too.
a red-eyed tree frog and a few other things, I think. But yes, I agree that he seemed very familiar with it. He clearly, I mean, clearly this was like a plot device so that we could see this and we could also hear about the line because he says, have you ever seen one of these before when you were like sitting with the legacy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I didn't catch that the first time I watched it, but yeah, this that thing about the legacy. So I think that's the computer in the vault. Because just of the way he worded it, sitting with the legacy, it kind of sounds like it's like an AI or a very advanced computer. Because remember in the start of the show, he was watching Jules's feed and he said stop, and it stopped. So it's like a voice activated computer. It's something that he can talk to. So yeah, and Solo has obviously seen a lot of videos because he's talking about circuses and lions, and it's obviously something he's actually seen himself. And then we know that Meadows has these videos, so I think she probably got them from some kind of archive, right? So
Yeah, I got the impression that the legacy was just like a bunch of information in like video
mm,
form or written form or a combination of the two. I didn't really think about it as like a computer or an AI like itself, but I guess that would be like a good medium for it, right? Like you can see it through on a screen or through VR glasses or whatever. And yeah, definitely it seems like something they probably show like IT people and shadows of heads of IT.
you know, it makes me think of. Have you seen The Fifth Element?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know that scene at the end when Lilu she looks up war and she gets all those videos and pictures and everything and she gets to see all of that. So like something like that, right? Like a disconnected version of the internet where they can search and look at all these things from the past and everything. And it would make sense why it's called the legacy too.
Yeah, I thought that it was probably some sort of like yeah, database of all the stuff that the people who created the silos wanted to like preserve. I don't know exactly why you would do that. Like I guess maybe for like a world in which you don't need the silos anymore and everyone comes out of them at some point in the future and so you're sort of passing this information down. Like I actually thought of the giver, like
Mm.
how like one person in that community holds like all of the historical information for everyone and also all of the emotions and all of that. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Actually, maybe that's what's stored in the server room. And I know that's gonna sound stupid if I'm right, and that's like what was in the books because I, I don't remember already. It was so long ago. But I mean, yeah, maybe that's literally like their storage of like that whole room is like considered the legacy or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Because the way that the room looks, like it's got numbers and everything, right? On like it looks like almost like drawers and things like that inside. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Bernard cries as Meadows dies, and I mean it was very emotional, even though like I was pretty irritated with Meadows at this point.
Yeah, I cried too. There was a lot of chemistry there. Like there's this as she dies or like the moment after she dies, he like kind of puts his head down on top of
Yeah,
hers and
yeah,
yeah, the whole framing of everything was very sad and emotional and I thought it was possibly the most chemistry they'd had in the
I
entire
know.
series so
Yeah,
far.
because for me, it was just awkward up until this point, and I think I had to think about it a bunch, and I think it's because for her, I think probably the relationship got suspended. You know, like if there
Yeah.
was anything between them, she like fell into a drunken stupor. And he went on and he had to live his life like normal, right? So a lot of time had to go by and he had to live with whatever pain or like confusion or whatever from her stepping down and everything like that. And so a lot more time, I guess, in a sense, has passed for him than it has for her. So I think when she stops drinking and she like starts giving off this vibe and sending some old signals at him, he probably is just really confused. And I think that's probably where the awkwardness for me came from.
Yeah.
But in this moment when she's dying, it's like he truly like you could feel like that was genuine, right?
Yeah,
He was
he was
sad.
a great actor too, like
Yeah.
just really really good.
And so it goes back to Jules and she's talking this is her This is her redemption moment for you. Right?
No, it really is. Like, this is like the moment where I honestly felt like she understood finally, like, and it all kind of connected for her. And she realized probably too, not only how she should treat Solo, but that that she needs him, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, she needs to draw him back out. Like, he's important to what her plans are and whatnot.
yeah. And I really liked all the way that the way that this was written, things that she said, and she was describing how like the range of emotions that she went to having to leave her silo and then coming in here. She said that she was tired when she went out, that she was relieved that it was over, but then she went outside and she felt so lonely and scared. And then she came here and she like discovered him. And so yeah, I guess I really like that because it's very rare for us to see her showing like that kind of emotion.
Well, and it's important, I think, that she kind of knew what to say because I think she knew that would resonate with him, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
feeling of being on
Lonely.
your own suddenly, right? Like
Yeah.
he too was suddenly on his own.
Yeah. Then she asks to know more about the circus, and she can't remember what the elephants are called. And so that's when he opens the door, and he come. I really liked the way he peeked out with like one eye, and he was like, "They're called elephants." And then he tells her about lions and jumping through rings of fire. So that is what tells me that he can watch. He's been watching videos because I don't know that that's. I mean, I guess you can see like an illustration, but I still feel like he's watching videos just because of the level of technology that we saw Bernard having access to when he was in the server room. So
I also think it's interesting, like the types of information that he gravitates toward versus, like, say, Meadows.
yeah,
Like, Meadows had all
yeah,
this information about kind of families and children and that sort of thing. Whereas Solo, who's obviously still very much a child in his mind, is gravitating toward all these crazy things that
fun,
children like, right? Like the
yeah,
circus
yeah,
and animals.
and adventure books.
Yeah. I mean, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is an interesting one, right? Like it has similar themes to kind of what
Mm-hmm.
he's going through, so you can see
Mm-hmm.
how he'd connect with it.
Yeah. All right, so they go back to Bernard. Oh my god, this scene was like very subtle, but it was so cold. Like he's just calmly washing the dishes after he's killed Judge Meadows. I was like, ooh.
I love him. I love how cold he is. I think it's happened multiple times too, and it's
Mm.
always subtle and it's always good.
So somebody had replied to me because I had said that he's like really digging into his cold-hearted bastard vibe, and somebody replied to me and said that he doesn't really seem as like like completely villainous, and I think he does because he like seems to delight in these moments when he like gets people, like in the field, in the cornfield when he arrested Jules. He was like smirking, like he was enjoying that. And then like later on, like when he get with like the mechanical people, he was enjoying himself then too. So I feel like, yeah, okay, he's like doing it for the good of the silo, but he's also like got an evil streak in him. I think some kind of part of him that takes delight in like having this power over people.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a power hungriness there. I agree. Like kind of when things are going his way and it's clear that he is the one who did like the gotcha
He
moment, like
wins.
he wins and he sort of feels good about that.
Yeah.
I think it's tied though to the health of the silo. Like I think it's a
Mm.
personal thing, but I think he also like we've seen him panic, and so I think there is a sort of desperation to make
Hmm.
things go well that he's also like feeling.
Okay, so Sims comes in to take care of Meadows. He opens like some kind of canvas bag and reveals a knife. And then Bernard tells him to take care of it. And then they cut away from that, and we have to just wait to hear about that. And they go back to Billings and Hank, and they're investigating who the second body was. And then Hank says something about how he wasn't moving, but he wasn't positive he's dead. And he says he was shot in the chest, but then he amends it and says, no, wait, he was shot in the shoulder. So I think Patrick is alive. Maybe he was drugged.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this particular plot line, so it was hard to kind of interpret that scene for me.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they needed to have Billings separated from the up top for whatever happens. I don't know. Because I feel like if he was up in the up top during like the mob and everything, he would have been doing stuff. So I don't know. Mechanical continues their climb and they eventually get to I think one like level below judicial and then there's a riot on the stairs. And I felt something was missing here because like there's this guy with long hair and like they like focus on him and he like has like a line he's like talking about like justice and stuff like that and he seems like a leader, right? I don't know, he was wearing some kind of, I feel like he was wearing something that gave like cult leader vibes, like, you know, almost like he was wearing like a robe or something. He had the long hair, but I don't know. Do you think they filmed something and they cut it?
I think it's funny because I got kind of like the opposite vibe you did in that like
Uh,
you seem to think there's something more going on, whereas I actually just thought that was like a really clunkily done like attempt at just sort of shoehorning like the information you needed into like a single like line and scene.
I don't know. I thought it was clunky too. It's just that I thought that maybe it was because like they had set him up earlier, but then they cut it out, but they still left the later
Oh, I
scene
don't know.
in.
You seem to be giving it like more credit than I am. Like I was just
No,
like, oh, clearly you were like, in my mind, I was just like, oh, you guys clearly just had to kind of throw a line in here to make sure we knew what was going on, and like I didn't really give it much more thought.
I thought it was weird too. It just stuck out to me a little, and I thought it was weird. But then Carla, she like drops a red ball down to Mechanical, one of her dog's balls, and then oh my god, it like nearly hits somebody. Like it looked really dangerous, and it ricocheted and everything too. Like you would have thought that that was really dangerous, and they would have told people like, "Don't stand around down here. We might drop a ball soon."
That's what I thought. I was like, wait, but wouldn't you all have been waiting for this? Like,
I
why
know
were you all standing right where it would
stand on the
drop?
side. You don't have to stand in the middle and just be like, "Oh, where's the ball?" not very not very smart. They don't know where the ball's going to land. But yeah, so she drops a red ball and Teddy yells, "Oh, red ball." And then they go shut off the lights, which happened pretty quickly, I thought. And then Knox says that the power stays out until they get to see Meadows. And then Bernard comes and he says that she's not feeling well, which is the understatement of the year. And then he says that they can see her if they turn the lights back on. And I thought this happened a little too fast. Like Carla's just like, oh, whatever. And she drops a green ball and the lights turn right back on. So I don't know. The balls were a nice concept and it was like a kind of like a gaspy moment when the lights go off. But then they turn them back on, like, I don't know, like just a couple minutes later.
Yeah, my it's funny. I watched this with my husband, and my husband said, a little later after the frame job is set up and they're running at the
Yeah.
end of the episode, he was like, "Why didn't they bring more balls? Like they could have dropped like another one to have everyone shut off the power again, right?"
Why did they have to bring balls? Why didn't they bring apples? Then at least like it wouldn't like have maybe potentially killed somebody. You know, it would have just gone
I think
splat.
it still would have killed someone. They're like dropping them like 100 something floors. There's still like acceleration due to gravity and all that.
Oh,
But yeah,
that's true.
I thought they used them up too fast in the sense that I was like, wait, why did you only have two? This is another like point to your statement earlier of like they seem really naive, right? Like I was like,
Yeah,
oh, you just thought
yeah,
you would turn it off and then you turn it back on and like you didn't have like a backup plan for if something
yeah. I mean, maybe she does have more balls, but it didn't seem like it because if they were like being like chased by the mob, they would have thrown another red ball down too, right? To turn off the
I
lights and
definitely would
confuse
have,
people.
yeah.
Next time bring more balls. Yeah, so Bernard makes them leave Shirley and Carla, or Walker and Carla outside while Shirley and Knox go in. And then they see Meadows is dead, and they know they're being set up. When they were walking down the hallway, I was just like, it was very ominous. I was like, oh my god, it's a trap. You could tell that nothing good was going to come of it. And they figure it out. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where Bernard looks very smug and he's like, I'm not going to stop you, like when they want to leave, right? Because he knows that they're going to, the mob is outside waiting. And he tells Sims that the people of the silo have to take care of it themselves. So he's doing what the order says, which is what Meadows had mentioned earlier, or not earlier, but in the last episode, that they have to turn everybody against Mechanical. So by the way, it was really bothering me. He kept calling them mechanicals. I did not like that. It was
Yeah, like
weird.
as though it's like the plural of like the people of mechanical is
Yeah,
mechanicals. I
yeah.
didn't like it either.
Like just call them mechanics or something. I did not like mechanicals. It sounded weird to me. Yeah. Anyway, so what were you saying? Sorry.
Oh yeah, I think that he's playing it very much by the book.
Mm,
And I think this has been like very clear from him too. Like Meadows sort of wanted to do things another way. He pushed back at every point, and he clearly wants to follow the order,
yeah.
or whatever, right? Like he. So I guess we'll see if that is the correct thing to do or not.
See, I feel like though, like he's following the order, but it's probably in the order that he needs to have a shadow, and yet he's got this person that he's like at odds with in Sims, and so I think Sims not being his shadow, that means he hasn't seen the order. He doesn't know what Bernard is doing and why. So I think he's making a mistake in that. He probably should have told.
It's interesting that no one knows but him, and the only other person who did know, Meadows, didn't want to follow the order.
Mm-hmm.
Like she seemed to think that it wasn't the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting choice from him.
Yeah, so and then Sims goes out and he gives this like the shouting speech to the mob and telling them that the mechanical people killed Meadows, that she gave her life to the silo, and that then they start running after them. And that's where the episode ends. But I saw a lot of complaints about people complain about Common or Sims all the time and his acting. And they particularly honed in on this speech. But his acting though, it doesn't, I don't know if it's because I just haven't seen him in anything else, and I don't know what he's like in real life, if, as like a rapper, and what he's like in like the press and things like that. But he doesn't really bother me too much. I don't really like the character too much, but yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with his acting. So not for
Yeah,
me
I don't think
anyway.
he's the greatest actor. But also at the same time, I think the lines they gave him there were awful and the
Mm,
situation was awful. Like, I just don't like, I think that it's a stretch to think that like he could incite a mob to like follow these people and be like, oh yeah, these people, these two people who were in this guarded room with the judge for all of like 3.5 seconds, like murdered her and then calmly walked out and started walking back down to their own area, and then like you can somehow convince a mob that like they murdered her. It just felt, the whole thing felt clunky.
like they show like he had put the knife in her so that they would say that she got stabbed, but they don't let anybody in to see her being stabbed, so what was the point of staging that? And then also it goes back to what I was saying earlier, like is Meadows really that beloved? She's in charge of judicial, which is the law. Like nobody likes the law. It's like kind of like you know how like people are anti-police now. Would the people of the silo really get really that upset if like the chief of police basically gets, or not the chief of police, but the head of like the justice system
I
basically?
can only imagine that it's less about that and more just about like the up toppers versus the down deepers, and kind
Mm,
of like, well, if they could do that to her, she's one of us, and they could do that to all of us, right? Like, I think it's supposed to be more symbolic and metaphorical, maybe, like the idea that if they could target a leader from the upper half of the silo, that's like a very bad thing, and that we should all band together against them. But I thought the whole thing was a little contrived, and I thought that Common's speech there was just like not very good writing, and therefore it was even
yeah,
harder for him. Who I do think he's already kind of a weak actor. But I think that made it even harder to like kind of deliver
yeah.
those lines and make them seem good and believable.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying about up top versus down deep, but yeah, I still think if that's the case, then yeah, I think that speech should have been written a little differently to like get a different angle of things, because the way that it was written, it was like it sounded like something that would have been more fitting to be written for Mayor Johns because everybody loved
Yeah.
her, right? But
No, I agree.
no,
I don't want to make it sound like I don't agree with you, because I do agree with you.
yeah,
Yeah, I just think that like I'm trying to find an excuse for why they think it works.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think we're saying the same thing. We just didn't like the speech. It was ugh. It did not fit. And so that's the breakdown. We're gonna go. We'll cover real quick because we're like, wow, we've been talking a while. But let's go into some community reactions and then some questions. Pacing. I still see a lot of complaints about the season being slow, and I feel like they've had to do a lot of setting up. So I can see the complaints. I think people have a valid point there, but at the same time, I'm kind of like a frequent TV watcher, so I tend to give more time to a show or a season before I start getting upset. And so, like, 1 or 2 or 3 episodes isn't that big of a deal to me to invest into a season. But like I said earlier, I did feel the first half of the episode was really choppy, and I didn't think that needed to cut between scenes so short and so quickly, back and forth, back and forth. I kind of felt like I was getting whiplash. But yeah, I would have been okay with longer scenes, fewer scene switches. The latter half of the episode was more exciting because of the metal thing, which I didn't see coming.
Yeah, I agree with the short switches. Like typically when you see rapid switches between scenes, it's because you're supposed to be sort of correlating those scenes in some way.
Yeah.
Like both plot lines are supposed to be tense, or there's a similar mirror situation happening or something. But that didn't really happen in this episode, so it did feel
Yeah.
like the switches didn't make any sense. I do think they're picking up the pacing though, and I think that it's
Mm-hmm.
going to keep picking up. Like I had a suspicion after the first episode that we were going to be seeing a few slow episodes to establish everything, but then it was going to come together very
Mm-hmm.
quickly. And I
Mm-hmm.
think we're seeing that right now, where like I think we're going to start seeing things come together very quickly from here
Yeah,
on. And
especially since next week is the middle of the season, right? So.
yeah, and I'm like you. I watch a lot of character-driven shows. I watch a lot of mystery box shows. I'm sort of used to letting series like unspool, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
really have a problem with that myself. I'll just sort of watch something and watch it waiting for the answers. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. For me, if something is more boring, like halfway or three-fourths through, and then I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna drop it. But yeah, I tend to give it more than just a couple episodes. So.
I saw the community was sort of talking about Bernard's decision to murder Judge Meadows, and people seemed very divided on it. And yeah, I think his behavior is really interesting. Like I said earlier, it's gonna, I think, come down to like whether it's right to follow the order.
Mm-hmm.
Is he doing it because he genuinely thinks it's like the correct decision, and that like kind of quashing Meadows like alternative thinking is smart? Or is he kind of blindly following it because he doesn't know what else to do? But I don't know. I feel like he made a bad decision getting rid of her. Like she's very smart and she had some very good ideas about what to do to sort of bring everything back, down
Mm-hmm.
from a boiling point. And I don't know if it's gonna work out well in the end for him.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, it just goes back to this one big flaw in all his actions is that he doesn't have a shadow. Like war is coming and something could happen to you and you don't have a shadow. It just seems I don't understand why he's continuing to do this. So.
Yeah, and you took the only person who you could have like bounced ideas off of or who could have
Mhm.
helped you, and you got rid of them and you didn't listen to them. So we'll see if that bites him, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so the code that Meadows deciphered, what do you think that was? Because it's really old. It predates both of them because if it's Salvador Quinn and it was like 100 from the last rebellion, it's going to be several generations before them, right? So.
Yeah, I think that it's probably the thing that led to the last rebellion, maybe like kind of a piece of information that they got
Mm,
that made them rebel. So I think it almost has to do with something that's on the outside, or like some reasoning that makes them feel like being in the silo is not the right thing. But it's hard to tell at this point because we don't know that much about 18's history. So yeah, I don't know.
okay, so another question that people have been asking is how did Sims get Meadows' body down to her office? Because there's a whole mob on the staircase. So what did he just casually like put her in a bag and then you can't move a body like very easily without anyone noticing, right?
I guess I assumed that he'd done that before the mob formed. I don't know. Like
Oh, I guess
I
it's
didn't really have a
possible,
problem
but
with that. Like it was very you mentioned the timeline earlier though, which I didn't realize was so squished. Like you said, like dinner was at 7 and they were supposed
yeah,
to meet her at
yeah.
like 9. So that's not a lot of time. And I guess maybe you're right. I just in my head I was like, oh, I guess he just kind of brought her down in like a kind of unassuming form earlier. But I guess there wasn't
Yeah.
really an earlier.
I mean, I guess things that he could have done. Maybe they could have put her in a wheelchair and pretended that they were taking some person who was wearing a hood down to medical or something like that. But it seemed like he was in charge of getting her down there by himself.
Like some sort of thing where you're like, oh, it's a big metal box and it has like
Yeah,
supplies in it
yeah,
or something.
yeah.
I don't
But
know.
it's very weird. But again, I mean, I hadn't thought of it earlier, but I said it earlier. But like, why stage everything with like the knife and everything? Is that for billing's sake, you think? Not necessarily the mob? Because I guess he would come up and he would investigate her death, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's just for the sake of like, if anyone sees this, we need to have like a decent excuse because I doubt they do autopsies here or have any way of
Mm,
figuring out if someone was poisoned or not. Like, well, I mean, clearly they don't because of John's.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll admit the body thing didn't bother me that much. I was just like, yeah, they figured it out, right? Like they cleared a path or they hid her body. I don't know.
So I did figure out how far he would have to get her, and it was only one level. So I mean, it's maybe it's also possible that Judge Meadows has like some secret back passageway down to work, so that she doesn't have to like go like on the main staircase because I think she lives on 15 and Judicial's on 14, so it's only a difference of one level. So it's possible there's like some other way connecting the two floors.
Yeah, it's true. We don't really know much about the layout of the floors. Like we haven't seen
Mm-hmm.
much in them beyond the central staircase.
Yeah. Okay. That's basically it for the breakdown. Any last things you want to mention?
No, that was a lot happened in that episode.
Okay, so what have you been watching since last week?
I watched Light Shop, which is awesome. It's a Korean mystery thriller horror, and it has the first 4 episodes out. So that was really fun and creepy and weird. I'm also watching Earth Abides, which is like what started on MGM Plus after From ended, and it's about like a post pandemic world where nearly everyone's dead. So it's one of those like post apocalyptic things.
Like the stand kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of. It's got a very stand like setup. And I want finally watching Culinary Class Wars. We love cooking shows in my house, and this is an awesome Korean cooking competition thing. So that's been
Mm,
fun. That's like our lighthearted thing. Like we watch like cooking shows or reality TV for like kind of like juxtapose the like heavy
mm.
stuff. How about you?
So, sorry, going back to Earth Abides, do you recognize the main guy?
Um.
That's Alexander Ludwig. He's Cato from the Hunger Games.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, yeah.
I I did recognize him. We didn't look him up to see what he's in though, and they've only really introduced like so it's the first episode's out and you don't meet a lot of characters in the first episode.
Uh,
But there are other actors and actresses in it that I like. They just haven't shown up yet. Like Aaron
mm,
Tveit in it. He's a very good singer, like Broadway actor. So like I'm very excited. I've seen him in a bunch of shows and a bunch of like movies and stuff. So I am excited about it. I do love post-apocalyptic things.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it had a good setup.
That's good. It's based on a book, I guess. It's an old book.
Yeah, a very old book. So they clearly updated the setting for it.
Yeah. So for me, I finished Bosch Legacy. Very happy with that. That was like that's probably one of the best detective shows I've ever watched. And then I finished my From rewatch, and I'm almost done with season 3. I felt like a little broken after the first couple episodes of the new season. It was very rough watching. I cried twice, and that's the first time the show has made me cry. But yeah, it was rough watching.
Wait until you get to the end of 10. We'll have to talk about it like
Okay.
between us.
I have 10 minutes left in episode 9, so I'm almost there.
Yeah, 10's a wild ride.
Okay.
I love From because like also like Solo and Victor give me like the same
Oh, yeah,
vibes.
definitely.
I love
Yeah.
Victor. Oh my god, all those
Yeah.
scenes which are like, and I'm just like, whenever I see Solo, I'm reminded of Victor.
Yeah. Victor and Henry, that was one of the ones that made me cry. So it was very emotional. Okay, so that about wraps it up. Angela and I have mentioned in the past that we're both editors. My business, Pico's House, offers a comprehensive slate of services for fiction authors, including alpha and beta reading, developmental editing, and critique, line and copy editing, and proofreading. My website is at www.picoshouse.com.
I'm the owner of Lambda Editing, and I specialize in editing services for self published authors. I'm a self published author myself, so I love enabling other authors to kind of get their work out there. My website is www.lambdaediting.com.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Wires from the Deep, and we hope you've been enjoying our podcast. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave us a review. Or if you're listening on Spotify, you can leave us a comment and let us know your thoughts on our discussion. Join discussions about the show on the Silo Series subreddit and on the Down Deep Discord, where you can participate in discussions with other fans or join our Friday night watch party. If you want to contact me or Angela, you can leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos or you can email us at crystal@thedowndeep.net. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.